All right. Once again, a warm welcome to everyone just logging in to join our webinar in social sciences. We will slowly get started. We see that some people are still joining, but I'll just start with some introductions. Once again, this is the webinar in social sciences, and we will have the panel introducing themselves shortly. My name is Maria Lindblad, and I work here at Lund University as an international marketing manager. And I will be the host and moderator of the webinar today. And as you can see, we have a lovely panel here representing some of our programs in social sciences. We had an earlier webinar an hour ago with some of our other programs, and we will also have a webinar half an hour after this one, so around 5:30 Swedish time. We will have a webinar with a panel of students who are currently studying different programs in social sciences. So please feel free to join us for that webinar as well to get a different perspective on the programs. Today, we are going to focus on the three programs that you see here on the panelists' screen. So that would be psychology, media and communication studies, and strategic communication. We will focus the questions on these three programs specifically. So if you have more general questions about how to apply or scholarships or something about the university or Sweden, we do refer to our other webinars during the applicant weeks. We will have more general webinars on Friday about how to apply and so on. So please try to focus the questions today on these specific programs and the content of those. The chat is disabled, but you are very welcome to ask any questions you might have in the Q&A. It's also possible to upvote or like questions that you see. So if you have a similar question and another student has already asked it, please like the question, and it will be a question that we'll try to prioritize during this webinar. Without further ado, I think we will let the panel introduce themselves and get started. So I will call you out here in the order that I see you in my screen. So let's start with you, Maria.
Hello, my name is Maria Månsson, and I'm the program director of the master's program in strategic communication. But I'm also a lecturer and a researcher at the department.
Thank you. And Michael?
Hello, everyone. I'm Michael Rydsaman, and I'm the program coordinator of the master program in Media and Communication Studies and a researcher in Media and Communication Studies.
Perfect. Thank you. And Roger?
Hello, I'm Roger Johansson, or Roger, if you prefer the international flavor of my name. And I'm one of two program directors for the Master of Science program in psychology. And I'm also a researcher in cognitive neuroscience and a senior lecturer at the Department of Psychology.
Thank you so much. A brief introduction. So let's dig into a little bit more about the programs. So now you've introduced yourselves. So now we'd want to know if you can introduce your programs. What's special about it? What's unique about it? What does it look like in terms of the type of students and how large the programs are and so on? Just a little bit of a flavor of what the program is about. We can start with you, Roger.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, we have both a broad and quite specialized program because psychology is a broad field. And within our program, we start out with sort of more general philosophy of science, and then you take courses in methods, and then you select three tracks within psychology. You can select from cognitive neuroscience, work and organizational psychology, developmental psychology, personality psychology, and social psychology. So you select three out of those. And then we intermingle that with some more practical skills and so on. And then finally you have your master's project. But we have a quite large focus on methods. So I think that's what makes this program a bit special. Yeah, and we have about 30 to 40 students. We aim for 35, but yeah, it varies a bit from year to year. and it's a quite international crowd. So we typically have like I would say 70% from within Europe, 20% from outside of Europe, and then around 10% from Sweden. So that's the sort of typical student population within our program.
Thank you. That was a very good overview of the psychology program. So, Michael, what is media and communication studies all about?
What isn't media and communications all about? Everything today in today's society is media, and we offer a 2-year program with 2 years where we dissect the media role in everyday society from all possible imaginative ways. We try to find the way to find the silliness in serious stuff and serious stuff in silliness. And within the program, we offer 30 credits of theory, 30 credits of methods and theory of science, and of course, a free semester and 1 semester of thesis work, like most of the master programs. But I would say that what really is different about us is that we have such a broad way of looking at all types of media content. We can do anything from healthy aging in a digital context, citizenship, to popular culture and professional wrestling. Anything is what we do. And in terms of students, we also offer a fairly diverse student population. Usually we cover 4 or 5 continents among the students. I'm usually very happy when we actually are able to cover 5 continents, but usually within 35 students, we usually are able to cover something like 24, 25 countries.
Great. Thank you, Michael. And Maria, what is strategic communication about?
Well, strategic communication is about organization's strategic communication, but we are looking into that from very kind of different perspectives. So, I mean, we start with more of a intercultural communication because our student group is very intercultural. So we start with intercultural communication to address some of the issues of being an international environment. And then we have courses in PR, brand communication, organizational communication, crisis communication, and also obviously in methods and qualitative and quantitative methods. So that's all covered in the first year. And then we have on the semester 3, we have optional courses. They can study courses here at Lund or at campus in our department, or you can study abroad, or you can take an internship course. So there are different options. And so it's a theoretical program, but with some practical elements or from guest lectures or other aspects within each courses, or also in the whole semester when you can take the internship course. So it's theory with elements of practical aspects into it.
Thank you for that. We have a question here already to Roger. And I wanted to broaden this. The specific question is, does psychology major have an opportunity to do a cross-major study with migration topics? So I want to ask you that, Roger, but I also want to broaden the question and ask all of the panelists, what is the possibility to specialize or to do sort of a piece of interdisciplinary studies, or to add specialization either within the department or take elective courses from outside? So I would like to broaden the question slightly, but first to Roger, is it possible to do cross?
Yeah, I guess it's a little bit in between. I mean, we do have a set framework for the program where you do study 100%, but it is possible to take courses outside of the program. And I mean, it is possible to do cross-disciplinary work for your thesis with other departments or faculties. That happens all the time. But I mean, the main topic needs to be firmly anchored within one of the areas in psychology. But we are very open to collaborations with other departments and faculties as well.
Yeah. Do you have any ones, just out of curiosity, that are more common? Is it something that is often requested among psychology students in terms of?
No, I mean, we do have a quite tight collaboration with the medicine, with the more, clinical parts from time to time, but then also with linguistics and so on. But I haven't really heard this one before, but it would be possible.
Mm. Mm. Thank you, Roger. Maria, same question to you. What are the possibilities to sort of specialize or take other courses to combine with strategic communication?
I mean, semester 3, we offer kind of elective courses at our department. So, and then obviously there you can choose of the different range of courses, or if you study abroad during that semester. But obviously the courses you choose have to be of relevance for strategic communication, but that could mean different emphases within strategic communication. And obviously, I think then the whole master's thesis is a way to specialize, because you choose your own topic and your own specialization within the field of strategic communication. So I would say the master's thesis in itself is a way to specialize and to create your own interest and develop that in your thesis work.
Absolutely. Same question for you then, Michael. What are the possibilities to specialize and take other subjects along media communication?
Media and communication is by definition a cross-disciplinary discipline. So in a way, everybody will find their own path within our field. So we like to give opportunities for students to employ their previous backgrounds, and we like to have diversity. I mean, we attract students from sociology, from psychology, social psychology, literature, a broad range of academic backgrounds, and we highly encourage our students to draw upon those backgrounds when they do our courses and when they find their free range courses as well. So like Maria says, it's sort of built in the structure of the entire program that you want this specialization for yourself, or at least we try to give the opportunity for our students to develop in any direction they like.
Thank you, Michael. A follow-up question to Maria related to your first introduction of the program. We have somebody asking here, can you please explain in more depth what is your definition / perspective of strategic communication, because the terms themselves are very broad.
And I think that is what in our program we look into strategic communication from different perspectives. That's why it's like Michael said, it's from an interdisciplinary perspective looking into strategic communication. So, I mean, we will address crisis communication as part of strategic communication, brand communication as part of strategic communication. And I mean, it is strategic communication, and some kind of traditionally we say it's organization strategic communication. But in that sense, you also need to understand the communication takes place in society. So it doesn't, I mean, so you can actually be the receivers of the communication. So, I mean, it's kind of a broad understanding of strategic communication. So there is not a single perspective. So it will be different perspective addressing strategic communication. And I think that is what you take with you from this program. It's not a single perspective that you will study. It will be from a different range of perspectives.
Yeah, I think that's a very good point. A follow-up question also for Michael, when you talked about elective courses, and you got a question here. Could you give some examples of courses that other students have chosen during the third semester?
Some students prefer to stay at home and take courses at the department outside of the ordinary program structure. Some students go to strategic communication, for example, and take courses in AI or strategic use of AI. Brand image. Some students prefer to go to more management-focused courses. Some students draw towards sociology, for example, or political science. And some students just focus on film studies, for example. So you have a very broad way of choosing from.
Thank you. Well, we dove pretty quickly here into the program content and specializations, which is great. But one question that I would like to ask more broadly as well is the kind of students you're looking for to the program, because now you have explained a little bit what the programs are about, but who is a good fit then for the program? So we start with you, Roger. What kind of students are you looking for the program?
Oh, sorry. Yeah. Yes. I mean, yeah, we are looking for independent students who are open with a critical mind, but still has a firm basis in psychology and research methods, because we do have that as a criterion as well to be accepted in our program. Since we do have a quite large focus on methods, we also require a certain experience in methods. So that's more on the academic part, but then since we are also within this very international environment, we are also looking for students who like to be in those contexts and who think they would thrive in a sort of diverse student culture like that.
I also have a couple of specific questions for you related to this, Roger. One question is here, do you have any suggestions for applicants with a non-psychology background in either a bachelor or master only in management or business, but after a career change, they have a couple of years of working experience and trainings in a related field? Do people like us stand a chance for the master's program? So basically, is it possible to apply without a psychology degree if you have relevant experience?
Yeah, no, currently it wouldn't, since we do require a certain amount of points in psychology, and also in research methods and statistics related to psychology studies.
Yeah. So that's good to clarify that. And another one for you, Roger, also specific to this. Are people from other studies such as liberal arts and sciences admitted, or can they be admitted if they have 100 ECTS credits of psychology, method, statistics, philosophy, or science courses?
Yeah, I mean, yes. I mean, we have this requirement that you should have a bachelor in psychology. But we can sort of look at individual cases if it's comparable to that in regard to what you've been up to before.
So just to clarify there, so the degree doesn't necessarily has to be a bachelor's in psychology, but it needs to have comparable kind of courses. Yeah. Excuse me. So Maria, what about you? What kind of students are you looking for strategic communication?
I mean, we have the criteria. You need to come from a social science background, and we have to have that. You have to have a certain amount of credits of relevance on strategic communication, organizational communication. But we look into that in a very kind of broad sense, but there are listed on our website what you need to have as a background. But I mean, the students we enroll, they come from a media and communication background. They might be from business administration. They might be more from development study, human resources, because they're more interested in employer branding and employer communication. So there can be quite a range of, and I think that is the best mix. And when we have a mix of students in the classroom, because that is when you develop good study environment, it's when everybody's not formed in the same and they can bring different perspectives to the courseworks and everything they do. So it is a different range of students, but you have to be interested and have an interest of the topic. And I think then you can come from, as long as you're eligible and you have the criteria you need, but then you can come from different backgrounds. It's not just bachelors from media and communication studies that we take on board. Some of them have that background, but they are much wider than that are enrolled to our program.
Thank you. There was actually a specific question regarding that, but I think you already answered that in your answer. So what about media and communication, Michael? What are you looking for in a student?
I think Maria just pinpointed it so beautifully. A keen interest in the field, both empirically, but also from a research perspective. That is the absolute key. And fairly similar. We are also looking for students with a bachelor degree in media communications or the equivalent, and we are fairly liberal with the use of the equivalent, as long as it's is a background in the humanities or social sciences, which means that we have students from language and literature, sociology, media studies, advertising, communication, social psychology, sometimes psychology, political science, and at times we've also have students from fashion studies and art. And since we're a fairly diverse environment in a both a geographical sense and more importantly in an intellectual sense, I would say that we are really looking for students who like to work in that kind of diverse environment and who are open to have their worldviews and ideas challenged, or rather theoretical assumptions that come from your different academic backgrounds challenged. And apart from that kind of keen interest in the field, we really seek students who want to contribute to the intellectual environment and show that kind of willingness to explore our different areas and meet other students and I wouldn't say clash, but discuss similarities and differences between how your experiences, both academically and as a person, correspond to your academic and personal experiences regarding our field. Mm-hmm. So that kind of willingness and openness to diversity and willingness to explore and learn and together, that's really what we're looking for.
Mm-hmm. And very important in today's world, I would say, being open to discuss. I mean, and we see a lot of polarization, so that's a great input there, that we need to be open to come from different perspectives, for sure. We have a question that is actually for anyone or everyone, but I thought it was quite interesting because we do come across this, because in Sweden we have usually a thesis, as we've talked about, at the end of all of our masters, but also at the end of our bachelors. But we, of course, have students from applying from all over the world, and not everybody has a thesis part of the bachelors. So here is a question from a student saying, I'm from the United States, and in the United States, a bachelor thesis is in many cases not a graduation requirement. And so what does that mean in terms of my application? And can I use a project from work or similar, I'm assuming a similar writing sample as a part of the application instead? So that they can be competitive if you do consider the thesis a lot in your selection. Roger, what do you say? I don't know how much you check the thesis specifically for the selection, but
yeah, we do not check thesis at all in our selection. We do have a statement of purpose, which also includes a short research proposal that you write within the application, and that is something that we are looking quite a lot at. So, but we are not looking into old bachelor thesis and so on in the selection process.
Okay, good to know. Michael, what about you?
Sorry. Again, like psychology, the single most important document that we look at is the statement of purpose. And however, we do look at the grade of the thesis within your transcript, if there is such a thing, because we expect the thesis to be the end of your bachelor studies, and we're more interested in your progression during your bachelor studies rather than the overall grades in that sense. So we do look at them with a somewhat special interest if they are there.
Mm-hmm. But if you don't have one, then the grades would suffice. Yeah. Yep. Maria, what about for strategic communication?
Well, it's one of the aspects we actually look at. We don't obviously read the thesis, but it's one of the grades and the topic for the thesis, and its relevance for strategic communication is one element that we look into when we make the merits of who do we choose in the ranking of the students. But if you don't have a bachelor thesis, then you can use another project that was a larger project within the program, and then you write that in your application. Why do you consider this project, and how is that contribution, the learning outcomes, relevance for strategic communication? So then I would choose another project and show what you learned and how that kind of the inputs from that to the application. So I would choose something else. I wouldn't ignore the question. I would choose something else and explain it and its value for the application.
Okay, thank you. That's great input. One more application question for Roger here. This is a student who applied already last year and was placed on the waiting list or the reserve list. And they are asking, how can they improve their application this year to have a better chance to be accepted? Do you have any tips?
Yeah, I think, I mean, since we do put a lot of, we look a lot at the statement of interest, and when we do have this research proposal that that's included there, and you could put some extra effort into that, and also think about, I mean, I think the biggest mistake that we see within these applications are students who are writing quite generically about what they sort of expect us to want to see. But that's not what we want to see. We want to see who you are and see your ideas and so on. And so try to sort of develop your own ideas and let that be seen within this statement. And also take a look at what's actually happening at our department and within our program, and see also if your ideas seems to fit with the research environment that's offered here. So I guess that's my tip.
It's a good recommendation, I think. We talked a little bit before about the possibility to specialize, and many of you mentioned also possibilities to study abroad or to do an internship. And we have a question here related to that. And this is about study abroad. This person is asking, what are the chances to be selected for an international mobility, and how large is the percentage of students who actually go to study abroad? Michael, what does it look like in media and communication? Is it common for students to go abroad?
Every fall, we usually have somewhere in between 1 and 3 students out of 35 that go abroad. They travel all over the world, really. Some of them go to a very common destination is Australia and Amsterdam. These are the two ones who really stick out.
Yeah.
Are those two. Which is both excellent research universities within our field.
Interesting. Maria, what does it look like in strategic communication? Are many students going abroad, and is it hard to get a spot?
Well, obviously, it goes centrally through the Lund application system. So, I mean, we don't select the students ourselves for studying abroad. But it's always a number of students who want to apply for studying abroad. But the thing is, most of the students are international already, so they have moved to Sweden. So obviously, they're already coming from somewhere else. So it's not always the case that they're interested in going to a third country to study. So there seems to be, in our semester 3, the internship course seems to be a more popular option than studying abroad.
Okay.
Although there is a couple of students, I would say around the same, like 5 or 6 students always study abroad for it, and we have 40 students in the program.
Roger, what's the situation in psychology?
Yeah, I mean, I can second what Maria just said. I mean, since most of the students are coming here, and so it's not that common, and it's also, I mean, and we don't select the ones that do, right? But yeah. It also depends a bit on the purpose of going away, right? Since time is quite limited, it also needs to be relevant for instance, for your thesis or something like that. Yeah, and then we are of course open to those possibilities, and we have one applicant right now that's wants to develop certain programming skills and has a place in Germany for that, and of course that's a possibility.
Thank you. And I think it's very relevant what you're talking about now, Roger, to consider also why and if it adds something to your degree. And also, finding out what's best for your individual situation. We do also have to look at practical aspects. If you are an incoming student from outside of Europe, you also need to consider things like your migration, your residence permits and things like that if you want to go abroad again. So there can be a lot of different things to consider, both practical and academic. So we should remember that as well. I would like to get into some other things. We've talked about study abroad and specializations and internships, but what about research? What are the possibilities for students to get involved with the research at the department or at the faculty, if we want to see it even broader, during their studies and also after their studies for that matter? But what does it look like in terms of contact between a master's student and the research that's ongoing at the department? If we start with Maria this time.
I would say most lecturers in the program are research as well. So in that sense, they get, obviously the latest research is also what you get delivered in the lectures. And then from this semester, we also started to invite on special occasion. We invite the master's student to the ordinary research seminars that we have at the department. So we also invite the master's students to them, or a selection of them, so they can take part of our ordinary research seminars for the department. And also if some research project have a need for an assistant, then there will be an open call for students to apply for that position if there is a need of someone taking part in a research project. And that has happened on several occasions, that we need someone to help out with collect data or something. And then that's an open call for all students to then apply for that position.
Interesting. We also have a specific question for you, Maria, related, this was related to the thesis specifically and that type of research, but they're asking here, when they're doing their thesis in strategic communication, are the broader topics predefined by the lecturer, or are we free to choose any topic of our preference?
Well, it has to be, you need to argue for the relevance for the topic in terms of strategic communication, but then that could be, you choose the topic, but it has to be of relevance for strategic communication. But there is no list of topics that you choose from. You create your own research proposal for your thesis, but you have a supervisor to assist you and give you feedback on the process and the work you're doing, but you choose the topic yourself.
Thank you. Michael, at Media and Communication, how do you get involved in research there?
Yeah, fairly similar to Maria again. All of the teachers at the program are active researchers to some degree. We encourage our students to participate in the ongoing research seminars at the department, and we also try to, every time that we do some kind of research event at the department, the students are always welcome to participate. Like, for example, we have an annual symposium every year where the students are both welcome as participants and as part of the organizing committee as well. So there is always the drive to include the master students in the research work.
Thank you. And Roger, what about at psychology?
Yeah, so again, it's quite similar. We also have active researchers as the teachers during the programs. So you will meet the researchers within your studies. And we also have several open seminar series running within the department, and there are also more cross-disciplinary seminar series that students are welcome to attend to. And then there are different possibilities to start to collaborate with certain research groups. We do also have from time to time, I mean, funded research assistant positions where there would be an open application procedure, but they could also be, I mean, more proactively driven from interest, where you could start to sort of already early on within the program. If you have a specific interest, perhaps you could already then start to, I mean, take part in some activities, and maybe you're planning to write your thesis within a specific project. So that's, it varies, but there are many ways of getting in touch with researchers and start doing things within research groups.
We actually have a specific question for you, Roger, as well. There is a student asking here, can we voluntarily take part in research groups during the master's program, such as Laminate?
Yeah, Laminate is a specific sort of cross-disciplinary and network. But there is a seminar series within that, and you are welcome to take part in that. And there you would then also meet people involved in that network. So otherwise, it's a little bit, I mean, it's not like we have sort of an announcement can get into research groups. It's more, you need to be proactive and talk to the teachers and researchers, and yeah, depending on your interests and the projects that are running, there can be openings more formally or more informal ways as well.
Great, thank you. We got an interesting question here, I think, and this is also open to all panelists. And the question is, are there many international lecturers at the university? So they're asking for all programs. They want to know, we talk a lot about international students and the class has an international profile, but what about the lecturers? Michael, on media communication, do you have any international lecturers?
On the top of my head, Swedish ones, British ones, American ones, Turkish ones, German ones, and Finnish ones.
Well, that's a nice selection, I would say. Maria, what does it look like at strategic communication in terms of international staff?
I would say it's very international on the staff who teach on the master's level. There are lecturers from South Africa, Germany. I mean, so it's not just the students who are international, also our members of staff is an international group of staff. So it's from all different countries.
Quite mixed there as well. Is it the same for psychology, Roger?
Yeah, I would say it's quite mixed. I mean, most of the teachers and lecturers, they made their career in Sweden for quite some years, right? But we have teachers who are coming from many different places as well, and we also have PhD students and postdocs involved in certain teaching activities that can also come from many different places, and some of them are also former master students, from Europe and US and Asia and so on. So yeah, I would say it's quite mixed.
Interesting. I would like to ask a question more about the daily activities for students on your program. So what does a typical week look like in terms of seminars, group work, other activities? We talked a little bit in the beginning about the overall structure of the program, but more like on a day-to-day basis, what is sort of a typical life of a student on the programs? If we start with you, Maria, what does it look like for a strategic communication student?
Well, I think the major difference, and I think that comes from many programs in Sweden, is that you only study one course at a time. So the courses is usually at our program they are like 5 weeks. So with the end of the 5 weeks, you actually have the examination over and done with, and you might be ending on a Friday, and on the Monday you start another course, which means it's a different pace of things. So that is usually what students are unaccustomed to, because they used to run several courses in parallel, and here we do them in sequence. So I think that is one of the major differences starting. So that's why there is not a single week that looks like the next week, but there's usually lectures and seminars, and then there's also, in our program, we have a lot of group assignments. So there's usually a group assignment within each course. So you might have a certain hours that are structured with lectures, but then a lot of the time you need to work in groups and do your own planning for your studying and reading and writing.
So a wide mix of activities there, I would say. What about in media and communication, Michael? What does it look like for students?
Well, most of our courses are, rather than 5 weeks, most of our courses are 10 weeks, which is focused on, for example, popular culture or media and diversity. And depending on where you are within that course, the week may look a little bit different. Usually in the early stages of the course, it's more lectures and workshops, where the weeks may be more like you do have lectures, do a little bit of reading during Monday. On Tuesday, you do group assignments, and then you have a workshop on Wednesday discussing what you've been working on that topic on that week. While at the end of the project, at the end of the course, you work more on your own group assignments and working on your own individual project, which is usually a small paper or a small thesis project in something like 5 to 10 pages, where you analyze do a little bit of an empirical investigation, collect some empirical material, work with that, and then produce a research paper by the end of the course.
Great, thank you. And Roger, what does a week look like in psychology?
Yeah, we in the first semester we also have more of this sequential way of taking one course at a time. But then from the semester 2 and 3, as I mentioned before, we do have these different tracks running in parallel. So there you will have 3 or 4 actually different courses running in parallel with these specialization areas within psychology in combination with certain skills that we have there. But we do have a lot of labs, exercises, and so on. That's combined with lectures and seminars in most of those courses. And then towards the end of semester 3, we also have this where you get more into becoming independent, doing more empirical stuff in preparation for your thesis, which you will work completely with in the 4th semester. So I guess that's the typical day. And of course, there's also a lot of fika involved during the day.
Of course,
yeah,
that's a very important part.
And we also have a very active student society, the Lund International Master Society of Psychology, who also has a lot of activities going on. And they've so we're really happy with this thing they have developed over the years. So it's also very likely that you will engage in those activities during a typical day.
Thank you. We have a few questions here. I think that, some attendees have joined us a little bit later. So we have a few questions related to the things we opened with. So I'm just going to ask the panelists if they can repeat a couple of things here. I know you've mentioned them already, but we have one question regarding the number of students. If you could just repeat how many roughly students you have in the program. Maria, how many are in strategic communication?
Roughly between 40 to 45 students are enrolled each year.
Thank you. And Michael?
We aim for 35, which means we usually admit something like 90.
Okay. And Roger?
Yeah, we also aim for 35. So I mean, plus minus 5 would be the typical year. But,
I think that's always very interesting. We get a lot of these questions. How many apply? How many get admitted? And so on, because it varies a lot around the world, and students trying to figure out what their chances are, of course. So it's a question that many are eager to hear. A couple of more requirements related questions. If you, Maria, could repeat the specific requirements for strategic communication. There were a couple of students here who were asking about that.
Well, you need to have a social science background, and then you need to have 90 credits, and it's listed on our homepage, so you can see the different topics that we see are of relevance for those 90 credits. So, I mean, it could be obviously strategic communication, media and communication, but it's also business administration, marketing, branding, and it could be, I mean, there is quite a range of topics that we find are equivalent to this. So we are kind of fairly generous of, you know, of our understanding of these topics. But you now to have kind of some kind of specialization or within this region for these 90 credits.
Thank you. Also, Michael, one for you here that we've talked about already, but somebody is eager to get into the program and wonders if you have any recommendations regarding the application or statement of purpose specifically.
Yes, we want to know who you are, and we want to know how you hope to contribute to the intellectual environment of the program. That is the most important thing. What is the mutual benefit of admitting you to our program? So if you focus on that within your statement, what are your research interests? What are your ideas? How do you see that they fit in within our intellectual environment? That's the focus on the statement, I would say. Focus on why you want to be part of our program.
Thank you. Good tips there. Here's a question that we kind of opened with, but slightly phrased in a different way. And I think it's a good question. So we'll put all of our panelists on the spot here. The question is, what makes you excited or passionate about your program? So this was an open question to all panelists. Roger, do you want to go first?
Yeah, that's I mean, there are of course many things with the program, but we actually revised our program quite recently. It started last year, which I, together with my colleague Elia, who is also a program director, developed. So we are quite passionate about this, which involves this the 5 tracks and the parallel ways of getting into these different areas, and also some things about progressing towards the thesis, which we are very happy about how this has turned out. But that would be the things that are the most exciting for us right now.
Exciting news going on. Yeah, thank you. Michael, what makes you excited or passionate about your program?
That was a lovely question, I would have to say. In one word, diversity. I love, and I am so proud, and I'm so happy, and I'm so excited about the diversity we have within the program, both in terms of that we are able to attract students from all over the world. We have students from China, from Africa, from the US, we've South America, and different parts of Europe. And we are blessed to attract students with such diverse backgrounds, as I've said before, from media and communication, from journalism, from sociology, political science, literature, fashion studies, which means that you have this vibrant, ongoing conversation that is never ending, and you always learn something new when you engage in conversation with our students, in particular now when they are starting to develop their thesis ideas. We see everything from how journalism and media can help build civil mobility or democratic projects in Africa, for example, or how different types of apps are used in order to protest against the Chinese government in Hong Kong. And all these types of diverse topics makes every conversation within this program potentially very rewarding, and it's such a great opportunity to learn about many topics, and that is something that really makes me excited about the program.
And now you just made us very excited too. So thank you for that. Maria, what makes you excited or passionate about your program?
I think it's the diversity of the program that I think is really, really interesting. And as you said, the diversity of the students, because I mean, we have students from all over the world, different backgrounds. Some have a specialization in TV presenting. and the other one have a human resource background, and someone have more of a brand and marketing communication background. So I think the mix is really interesting, especially obviously it's challenging as well in group work and assignments, but I think it's very interesting to have this mix of groups of students and also this very international environment. And also I think it's exciting that they are also very kind of bonding and doing things for each other. I just say that sometimes we do things together after the studies to just, last week we had a Christmas potluck that we organized with the students. So if you'd seen me a week ago, you would see me dressed as a Christmas elf. That was my outfit. So, I mean, just these things are so important as well. It's not just about studying when you come to study at the different countries. It's also these people that you're going to meet is going to be your friends for life. You know, you never know if you're going to work together, or, I mean, even lecturers, there might be a lecturer today, but you might be a PhD student in a couple of years' time, or you will be interacting in another way. So, I mean, this is your future network as well that you will come encounter when you come into this program. And I think that is what's exciting. You never know, it's student one day, and then you go to an academic conference and you meet them, and then they are a PhD student, and then your peers. So that is what's exciting to work in this kind of environment, I think. And that's what's interesting for the students as well.
Yeah, thank you so much. I was just going to say that I think one thing that makes applicants passionate is to see that you're so passionate, all of you, about the programs as well, because that does say quite a lot, I would say. I want to switch gears a little bit into the opportunities for students. We've talked about opportunities within the program. We've talked a little bit about internships and research. We might have time to get into that a little bit more, but I was thinking about career opportunities. So once you have completed the program or you're about to graduate, what are the possibilities or perhaps most common routes that your graduates take upon finishing the studies? Roger, if we start with you again, where do your graduates end up and how? Maybe.
Yeah. We do have a lot of students who aim for PhD studies, and several also succeed. Some of them have becomes PhD students at our department, but also in many other different places in Europe and the world. So I think we do have a quite high success rate in that regard. But then there are other common career options within like human resources and development, and also communication, and within education, healthcare, and other industry related arenas where I mean, as psychology perspective might be relevant. So it's quite diverse as well.
Yeah. You mentioned that quite a few aim for PhD studies and continuing with research. And we actually had a question here, which I'm going to take the opportunity to ask you in the middle of your answer here. And that is if there is a possibility to discuss the research options. If you are a prospective student now and you want to understand more, what are their research options? I'm assuming after the program, but perhaps also during the program. Is that something, is there a possibility for them to get a bit of information before starting the program?
I mean, we do have an excellent study guidance that can answer all kinds of questions, but it depends. I mean, since psychology is such a broad area as well, it looks very different, for instance, within cognitive neuroscience and work and organizational psychology. But I mean, you can always ask us, and typically within our department we do have these open calls for the PhD positions, typically 1 or 2 every year. But then there are also a more funded sort of positions from external grants that are more specialized and so on, that one could apply for. But typically we sort of encourage those who are interested in that to apply all over the world, right? Because there are limited positions.
Yeah, exactly. And I think one important point there is because it is different in different countries around the world, but here in Sweden, PhD, doing your PhD is a job position, and it is, you know, you are employed at the department and funded. So that of course limits the number that we can offer, whereas in many other countries, you simply go ahead and pay for a study place and you do your PhD, but it's a different system here. So that's a good point there to look broadly. Michael, where do your students end up?
In quite a lot of different places. Since many of our students are active journalists when they come to us, some of them return back to journalism. That's a fairly common route. But among other students, it's very common that students are working within both private sectors and governmental bodies, non-governmental bodies. Quite a few work in EU level organizations with different types of developments. Brand development is also very common in terms of like advertising, PR, communication strategy, that kind of stuff. And for some reason, we do have, there seems to be a particular niche that our students like to get into, which is the startup community. And I don't know why this is, but helping other people work with developing their ideas into workable startup companies is something that our students are quite adept at be doing for some reason. Mm-hmm. Then I would like to build upon what Roger said regarding PhD students, because we do have we've had the program I think for 7 or 8 years, and I think at the moment we have something like 25 students of our alumni who are doing or concluding their PhD studies right now, and from all over the world. And one of the things we try to do is sort of actively encourage from day one that kind of research interest, like find your own interests, find your own projects, discuss them both with your fellow students, but also with your lecturers, with the people at the department. So you sort of develop your own curiosity and your own analytical gaze. Every time you do an assignment, that's training for doing research. That's basically the entire idea of the master program. And so for that reason, I would say you have quite a lot of students who doesn't plan to be PhD students when they enter the program, but over time and over the course of the program, they find that, oh, this is something I actually enjoy doing, and this is something I might actually be good at. This might be a career. So I would definitely say that the development of students into potential PhD students is also one of the aims that we strive for.
Interesting. Thank you, Michael. And Maria, where do the strategic communication students end up?
Well, they end up, as I think, in very similar, both in private organization, public organization, non-governmental organization. They might work with PR agencies, they might work with the municipalities in communication department or for big brands. So it's a big range of projects, and we just did a research last year and questionnaire. So we know that most of our master students have a job even before. Some of them have jobs before they even graduate. So most of them have a job within a couple of months. After graduating, they already find a position within a relevant field or after their studies. So, and some of them goes on also to do a PhD track and employment. So obviously you can, after studying this, it's also a possibility to move on to do a research program as a PhD candidate. Mm-hmm. So there are different routes and they're all possible.
Yeah. And one thing we talked about earlier, and that can help you get a job, of course, is doing an internship also during your studies to build your network and get some work experience. And there was a question here for you, Maria, as well. If you do decide to do an internship during the studies, is that something that you do within the department, or is there like a list of companies that you collaborate with, or how does that work?
You find your own placement to do the internship, but then we sign a contract. So obviously there has to be, it can't be a startup with the one person working there. It needs to be a slightly bigger company with a couple of employees. So you choose the placement. So that could be within Sweden. It could also be in other countries. So, and some works for these kind of UN and these kind of, because they also have these internship trainee programs. So it ranges from what type of companies, and obviously that's a way to specialize where you want to be in the future.
Absolutely. Great. Thank you for that. And time flies, and it's now 1 minute past 5 here. So it's time for us to wrap up. I want to thank all the panelists for all their insights about the programs, and of course, all the attendees for hanging in there with us during this hour. I hope it was helpful and useful. And I want to say good luck to everyone who is in the middle of their application. And please do join us in 30 minutes when we will have a panel of students from all social sciences programs, or most of them, who can tell you a little bit more about student life and what it is like to study within the social sciences from a student perspective. So I hope we will see you there in about 30 minutes. But for now, thank you so much for joining us, and yeah, have a nice evening. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.